before me.
Deploy!
Number one, Mr. Martin Redmond.
Mr. Speaker, sir, this morning I presided at a meeting of the Cabinet and had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. After my duties in this House, I shall depart for a visit to Scotland.
Mr. Martin Redmond.
Mr. Speaker, sir, bearing in mind the decision of the Doncaster Health Authority, the Community Health Council, and the recent monopole that show that the people are opposed to the opting out of the health service of the Doncaster Royal Infirmary, the Montague Hospital. For the sake of democracy, will the Prime Minister support a local referendum before that decision is implemented?
Mr. Speaker, no hospitals are opting out of the National Health Service. They are being given the chance to become self-governing and have therefore far more decisions over the resources available, much better management, much closer to the consultants and nurses. Many people will want it that way, and I suggest that the Honourable Gentleman sees how the system works. I think you'll find that many self-governing hospitals operate far better than those who do not choose that path.
Mr. Devlin.
Will the Prime Minister confirm that militant violence has no part to play? Will she confirm that militant violence has no part to play in the fixing of the community charge in our town halls?
Mr. Speaker, I gladly confirm what my honourable friend says. Any violent or intimidatory demonstrations organised, I understand, in an excellent article in the Times today by the militant left, or the negation of democracy, and people should pursue their protest peacefully and in accordance with the democratic process. And I believe also it is quite wrong for any honourable members to suggest that people should disobey the law in not paying their community charge.
Mr. Speaker. May I first of all agree with everything that the Prime Minister just said, as I've very long made very clear. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister tell us why her government thinks it would not be in the public interest to use its powers to seek the disqualification of the proven liars who now head the House of Fraser?
Mr. Speaker, my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Department of Trade and Industry, answered a question yesterday, or made a statement yesterday in which he answered many of these questions in detail. I have read fully the replies which he made. As far as the prosecution is concerned, that is a matter for the prosecuting authorities. As far as the other powers are concerned, it will be for the regulatory authorities. As far as the quasi-judicial decision is concerned, that is for my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Trade and Industry. He's made it and answered to the House.
Does the Prime Minister agree with the Financial Times that in the Harrods case, the real issue is public confidence in the business and financial system? If her government will not use its powers to disqualify directors who have been shown to be guilty of deliberate and persistent dishonesty, in what circumstances will she ever take action?
I have indicated this is a quasi-judicial decision for my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Trade and Industry. I refer him to the reply he gave in the House yesterday. I considered the matter most carefully and concluded it would not be in the public interest to seek such an order in this case. Those who read the report, he continued, can make their own assessment of the conduct of those involved. He continued, the provisions of the Act are not intended as a punishment, but as a protection for the public. He went on and gave many other detailed replies. Some of them, he went on and gave many other detailed replies which I have read, some of them which are of a technical nature, and I rest my own reply upon his.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has still not answered the question coming from both sides of the House. Why did the Secretary of State not use the powers which he so clearly has? The government has powers to act, and by their inaction they are completely contradicting the public interest in the honest conduct of business in Britain. Isn't that an open invitation, Mr. Speaker, to others who could employ the same dishonesty as that has been shown by the directors of Harrods? Why does the government so favour those who are very guilty when they happen to be very rich?
Mr. Speaker, if there are offences which are of a fraudulent kind, that, as the right honourable gentleman knows, is a matter for the prosecuting authorities, and any question would therefore lie to the Attorney General. With regard to that particular report, as my right honourable friend indicated yesterday, he has answered the questions in full, and I must rest upon them. I have not, however, answered the right honourable gentleman's first comment when he rose at that dispatch box, that he agreed with me fully about condemning the militant. Will he also, therefore,
Order. Prime Minister.
Will he also, therefore, condemn the 28 Labour members of Parliament who are urging that people should not pay?
Mr. Barry Porter. Order. I call the honourable member. Mr. Porter.
Find that Mr. Skinner thinks he might be thought of as me.
Order. Order. The honourable gentleman must contain himself. Mr. Porter.
Would my right honourable friend accept from me that a gentleman came to my surgery the other day who advanced some mild reservations about one or two details of the implementation of the community charge? But what really concerned him is that he couldn't understand what the alternative was, and I was unable to give him that information. And I just wondered whether my right honourable friend has any information from Walworth Row which might lead her to be able to...
Order. Sit him down. The Prime Minister has no responsibility for what goes on in Walworth Road. Mr. Roy Hughes.
The very honourable gentleman, the reply which I gave some moments ago.
Mr. Roy Hughes.
Has the Prime Minister's attention been called to the cost of collecting poll tax compared with rates? For example, in Wales, the cost will rocket from 9 million to over 25 million. And all this additional bureaucracy, new equipment, even new buildings, will have to be paid for by the charge payer. In these circumstances, is it not sheer hypocrisy on the part of her government to lecture our local authorities on financial stringency and cost cutting?
Mr. Speaker, if more people are paying community charge than we're paying rates, and that is part of the object of the exercise, because 17 million people were not paying rates, many of them will be paying community charge, it will cost more to collect it, but nothing like as much to collect as it would to collect both a roof tax and a local income tax.
Andrew Mitchell.
Number 3, sir.
I defer my honourable friend to the reply which I gave some moments ago.
Will my right honourable friend utterly condemn the disgraceful and dangerous scenes which we have witnessed in various council chambers across the country in recent days? Orchestrated by various left-wing groups and encouraged by those members of the party opposite who decline to obey the law by threatening to withhold payment of their community charge. Will my right
Question, please.
will my right honourable friend invite...
One question, please. It's not fair on others.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I utterly condemn the violent scenes which seem to have been organised by the militant tendency. They are precisely the same kind of violence we've seen before at Grunwick, in the coal strike, and at Wapping, and they're the negation of democracy. We also condemn anyone, particularly, we would think, an honourable member of this House, who chooses to disobey the law by refusing to pay his community charge. That is totally wrong, and it means that honourable members opposite only obey the law if they make it, and not when another government does. That is anti-democratic.
Stanley! Number 4.
I defer the honourable gentleman to the reply which I gave some moments ago.
Mr. Stanley Orme.
The Prime Minister will be aware that today is International Women's Day, which has been celebrated throughout the world. But in this country, millions of women are suffering from the economic policies of her government. And in this regard, will she not now take steps to help many of these women by increasing child benefits immediately?
No, Mr. Speaker, but I'm very happy to report to the right honourable gentleman that, of course, it being International Women's Day, we must remind him that owing to my right honourable friend, the last chance of the Exchequer, the government, owing to my right honourable friend, the last chance of the Exchequer, women for the first time will be separately taxed, which will be a great advantage. May I also add how very grateful we are that our small number of heads of government have been added to by another head of government, a woman head of government in Nicaragua.
Number 5.
I refer my honourable friend to the reply which I gave some moments.
Sir Hugh Rossett.
Mr. Speaker, in view of the criticism levelled against the United Kingdom at The Hague yesterday over the proposals to cease the dumping of industrial waste, albeit non-toxic, by 1992 and treated sewage sludge by 1998, can my right honourable friend tell the House what proportion of pollution of the North Sea is due to these current practices, and what proportion is due to the emission of untreated waste of every kind into the rivers Elbe, Weber, Rhine, Moselle, and
Mr. Speaker, my right honourable friend, who knows a great deal of these things, knows that trace elements contained in sewage sludge account for only 1% of the total North Sea load. The great amount of contamination in the North Sea comes from the 3 rivers, which he mentioned, the Rhine, the Meuse, and the Elbe, which deposit something like 65% of the contaminants into the North Sea, more than 3 times the whole of that deposited by our own rivers. With regard to the sewage sludge point that he mentioned, it will, of course, putting it into the North Sea, will, of course, have to be replaced by burning it on land, for which we shall require planning permission for something like 10 incinerators in order to comply with the undertaking we have given.
Ashdown. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Order. Oh, well, he's the leader of the second largest party, Mr. Ashdown.
Mr. Speaker, does the Prime Minister realise how welcome was her statement over the weekend that she would reconsider some aspects of the poll tax? In that process, will she think again about the advantages of local income tax? It's fairer, it's more efficient, it's simpler, And does it not enjoy just exactly the same level of accountability for local government which she has to answer to nationally? Does she realise that if she will show an open mind on this, she will give hope to many who suffer under the poll tax at present?
Mr. Speaker, with regard to what I said at the weekend, it repeated what my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State's Environment, had said in a debate in this House, that if there was any fresh evidence, he would look at the calculation of the standard spending assessments again. That was the undertaking which I repeated at the weekend. With regard to a local income tax, I think it would be just about the most unpopular and bureaucratic way of raising money for a local authority, and I think he'll find that when the community charge has been working, it will be realised it is quite the best way of collecting money for the local authority, bearing in mind that 1 in 4 people will have a rebate, and also there is transitional relief, all expenditure of which will be met by the taxpayer.
Business